Well, hey, Gundam Maniacs, welcome to another episode of Gundam Explain. Well, thanks to Bandai Namco or Bamco Nandai, check links in the description for the new shirt I have out. They've allowed me to get a look at the Phenex early in GBO2, but decided to also kind of look into the lore of the Phenex itself because it's kind of creepy. But before we get started, if you haven't, please subscribe. And if you think this is a cool video, give it a like. And check the links in the description for ways you can support the channel, but also the Discord where we have a lot of fun and it's really cool. But let's get started. Okay, so if you watch the Gundam anime and the UC timeline, Gundam narrative is where we first see the Phenex. The Phenex is part of that whole, I guess they call it the RXO. There's the three, the Banshee, the Unicorn, and then the Phenex. So, it's interesting in Unicorn seeing, what the Unicorn itself and the Banshee does. But then it was pretty interesting to get that narrative follow-up, to have a pretty sick-looking Gundam, right? Because it's like gold, right? And then it kind of does its new type ability we'll get into, where it all opens up and you see like the psycho frame inside and it gives it that cool blue color on top of it. And yeah, I think right here we can kind of see the front real quick. And get the back where it has the shields, and then yeah, it opens up and does its thing, and it just looks sick like that. I've built the high grade. I forget if I've done a review on the channel of it before, but overall I think everyone agrees it's just a cool looking mobile suit. It's all gold and in universe all gold, but with something so cool, it's almost like sad and creepy, the background story of it. Because if you watch narrative, what's going on is you have these kids, and I'll try to keep it brief, but these kids in Australia that are friends. One of them happens to have new type abilities, and she has a vision of the colony drop in Australia. So she's able to convince the small town to leave. And from that, I guess the Federation had decided to, take them in for their own good, do experiments on these three miracle children, when I think really what it was is only one named Rita was the one with the new type abilities. Her friends didn't have the new type abilities, but they were all experimented on anyway and used by the Federation to see what else they can get into. And that's where the sad part comes into, because during tests with the Phenex, at one point when activating her new type Psychomu abilities or whatever, her soul merges with the Phenex and it disappears. Pretty crazy, right? Because even a lot of the story of narrative, and I'll kind of get into what goes on there, they're trying to hunt down the Phenex in order to get it back. But, I mean, that's kind of creepy, because what are you dealing with here with a sentient Phenex? And this is kind of good timing, I guess, because in Witch from Mercury, we're going to figure out maybe if the Ariel is sentient or not. But you've got to then think and assume, what does this mean when someone's soul has been kind of integrated into a mobile suit? And that's actually been a previous Gundam story in UC lore through one of the video games. I think I did cover that in a previous video, and I might have to touch on that again. Okay, with the Phenex, quick technology and combat characteristics, the RXO Unicorn Gundam 03 Phenex was a new machine secretly built under the direction of a EFSF official who disapproved of the VIST Foundation's involvement in the UC project. Using a psycho-frame body delivered in advance, it was assembled independently by the Earth Federation forces and reflects the data of Units 1 and 2, rather than that of a unicorn. The Phenex motif is that of a phoenix, illustrated with a much more elaborate horn V-fin in a golden body. And so, from what I understood back in mythology, where the idea of the phoenix comes from, Phenex was also another spelling and way to pronounce it, and I think that's just been used even today in Gundam, where that's just another way you can say Phoenix is Phenex. So a main part of this is that NTD system, a special operating system installed in the RXO series mobile suits. And so, yeah, if you've watched Unicorn, you can kind of see where that comes into play. The name NTD is supposed to be an abbreviation for New Type Drive, but is actually an abbreviation for New Type Destroyer, a system developed to eliminate new types. The system is activated when it detects an enemy Psychomu machine as well as its new type or cyber new type pilot. When activated, the mobile suit transforms into destroy mode, dramatically improving its performance as its limiters are disabled and allowing it to hijack the enemy machine's Psychomu weaponry. However, it places a heavy burden on the pilot and the machine and is limited to 5 minutes. Ironically, because of the massive stress placed on the pilot, a new type is the best pilot for the unit. So it's very interesting stuff. We can kind of see where the bad guys of the Earth Federation are playing with people just as much as Xeon would. However, I tell you, I feel like there should be a drinking game where anytime an anime character is explaining something and then says, however, you take a shot. So during the events of Mobile Suit Gundam UC 0096 Last Sun, the Phenex was captured by the Nitro Lab and equipped with an early version of the Armed Armor XC, which uses a nitro system to forcibly turn the pilot into a cyber new type, allowing the use of NTD by a non-new type pilot. The Armed Armor XC was later destroyed in combat, and the Phenex escaped. So that's pretty crazy stuff. So that is kind of the, I guess, sort of the history on the development and the characteristics of the Phenex. And I guess the technology, Psychomu technology involved could have been what allowed the Rita's like soul to kind of be fused with it, unless that was more of because she's a new type herself. What if that was just more of her destiny, her powers? Eventually that was going to be the point, and to kind of steer the Earth Federation and the Xeon forces from maybe trying to achieve something with it. I don't know. So a little bit about Rita Bernal. Here's a look at her. Okay, so her birthday, 72. So you can see that, yeah, she was very young when all this was happening. 1 year war growing up, a kind of a lab experiment the whole time. She's an ensign of the Earth Federation forces. She has gone missing since the Phenex went wild during an activation test. Rita shared a similar childhood to Jonah Basta. So Jonah, who I'll get into in a second, is the pilot of the Narrative. He was one of the three, and he was in the Narrative Gundam. The A-Packs, B-Packs, C-Packs were just part of that Phenex hunt to try to get the Phenex back. And being her friend and not really being a new type himself, it's like that's not something he wants to have to do, but these kids were really forced into this stuff from an early age. So they both grew up as orphans in Australia after losing their parents during the 1 year war. During a school trip in UC 0079, she foresaw the occurrence of Operation British and its failure, which would result in a colony hitting Sydney. She, along with her childhood friends Jonah and Michelle, were able to save an entire town by warning them of an upcoming tragedy. Due to this, the three became known as the Miracle Children. So I kind of covered this, but I guess to get it from the wiki itself. In UC 0095, she served as a pilot of the RX9 Unicorn Gundam 03 Phenex and went missing after the Phenex ran wild during an activation test. Her soul later merged with the Phenex Psycho frame. The Phenex containing Rita's soul reappeared a year and a half later in UC 0097. So again, that is kind of a creepy and sad kind of part about it. And looking at this picture here, look at the experiments the Earth Federation has done. And that's just crazy. And maybe not just Earth Federation, but also Luo and Co., who the head was mentioned in Zeta, and then they get more into Luo and Co. in later Gundam, especially Narrative. They're just a corporation, if you will, that aligns itself with the Earth Federation, kind of probably helps develop things for the Earth Federation, gets paid by the Earth Federation, probably just like another Anaheim Electronics. So if you remember, I was talking about the RX9 Narrative Gundam. So this is kind of like a prototype new Gundam. So it has all the things in place to, be a prototype new Gundam. One cool feature of it, though, is it has its core fighter, which I love that aspect of the original Gundam, is the core fighter. And it had its different forms. Look at this, activated, looks sick. And that was actually a trick, if you will. It wasn't supposed to, it wasn't known to have that inside of it, but when it met with the Phenex, it kind of activated, kind of forcing Jonah against his will, because he really didn't want to have to kill his friend. But they had this narrative set up with all these different types of weapons. Again, ABC packs, and here's one of them here. It has these wire-guided sort of fin funnel looking arms. Now, wire guided because he wasn't necessarily a true new type. And I guess being different from the RXO series, they were kind of forcing to be a cyber new type in a way. But maybe this system, not necessarily, just that it then forced to fight against a new type. And I just wanted to bring up the Neo Xeon here, because what occurred was Luo and Co. happened to have a version of this, and they had it sent to the Federation, or I think it was sent to, Xeon at that time, Neo Xeon, the sleeves. But what was going on is that aspect of the Earth Federation and Xeon were actually working together to sort of get the Phenex to appear by having these the narrative and the Neo Xeon kind of in a duel, in a battle, that really activates the psycho waves at like a huge level. And this is what then brings the Phenex in. And they were hoping to capture it that way. And it actually gave the opportunity for that narrative Gundam to fuse with the Neo Xeon or attach itself with it. So if you watch narrative, there's so much crazy stuff going on, although sometimes a lot of people don't really talk about narrative. I think because there's a lot of time spent on the children and their story, and it's more about the relationship. Even though the situations they go through are interesting, it's just that's a small fraction of really the more children characterization that is occurring. But the story around it, the things the Earth Federation and Xeon were willing to do to people is what's fascinating. At the end of the day, it is creepy that we come to this point where we have this new type that fused with the Phenex. And again, that's not the first time that's happened. So it makes me think, by this time, is it where the world, the Earth Federation, Xeon, whoever other parties in charge, think of what the Vis Foundation was trying to do, what Luonko was trying to do. Was it at the point where, okay, we can't really be leveraging new types anymore. We're just creating these monsters. We're creating these machines, weapons of destruction. Because we see in later UC, they talk about new types in Hathaway, in F91. But it's almost like it's not a big deal. They're not being sort of manipulated. I guess Iron Mask, that was his name, right? The main baddie, the father of Cecilia in F91, in his, his crazy giant mobile armor at the end. Oh, I wish I could just pull that name out of my hat. Let's see. That one had all the wires hooked up to his brain to really manipulate his brainwaves. Does that mean he was a cyber new type? But what I'm trying to get at is it looks like that time in the UC timeline, there's really less emphasis on new types manipulating people that are new types. Well, anyway, that does it for this video looking at the Phenex Gundam. I think you should, if you haven't watched Unicorn, and then watch Gundam Narrative. I don't think a lot of people have watched it, and it's very interesting. The Phenex just looks cool, honestly. It's just an awesome design, but the story that goes along with it is really just as epic, even if it is a little sad and creepy. But it's an epic story for an epic mobile suit. So, guys, let me know what you think in the comments below. Fan of the suit? Are you excited that it's showing up in GBO2? Again, I still even haven't got my Hazel. How am I going to get this guy? It's that, gotcha aspect, Also, shout out to my supporters, Patreon, YouTube membership. If you're interested in something like that, check the links in the description below, because pretty soon I will be planning out what our movie will be for the month that we'll watch, and also the monthly G-Watch. So if you want to get on the podcast to talk about a specific Gundam show or other anime, join us and get more details on that in the Discord. So anyway, guys, thanks for watching. We'll talk later.